My husband used to tell everyone that I was nothing without him. The day he divorced me, he smiled as he signed the papers and leaned across the table. "You'll never be successful on your own, Emma. Everything you have is because of me." Those were the last words he spoke before walking away with his new girlfriend on his arm. Exactly 1 year later, that same man stood frozen outside a boardroom, staring at the company logo behind me. The board members rose to their feet as I entered the room. Ryan couldn't understand why everyone was suddenly treating me with respect. He didn't know that I had just become the majority owner of the company that had made him famous. But before I tell you how that happened, you need to understand why I smiled when security asked him to hand over his employee badge. My name is Emma Carter, and for 10 years, I believed that sacrificing my dreams for the man I loved was what a good wife was supposed to do. Ryan and I met in college while studying marketing. He was outgoing, charismatic, and loved being the center of attention. I was quieter, preferring to work behind the scenes, developing creative ideas and business strategies. We fell in love quickly, and together we dreamed about building an incredible future. After graduation, we both found entry-level jobs, working long hours while barely making enough money to pay rent. During those difficult years, we promised each other that one day all our sacrifices would be worth it. A few years later, Ryan was offered a management position at one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the city. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but the job demanded long hours and intense competition. One evening, he sat beside me on our tiny apartment couch and held my hands. "Emma, I need your help. You're better at strategy than anyone I know. If you work with me behind the scenes, I know I can become a director within a few years, then we'll both enjoy the rewards." I loved him completely, so I didn't hesitate. I left my own promising career and devoted myself to helping his succeed. Every night after he came home, I helped prepare presentations, researched competitors, analyzed market trends, and built marketing campaigns. Ryan delivered those presentations with confidence while everyone applauded his brilliance. No one ever knew that most of the ideas came from me. Years passed. Ryan climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected. Promotions became raises, raises became bonuses, and eventually he was named Chief Operating Officer. We bought a beautiful house, expensive cars, and traveled around the world. From the outside, our marriage looked perfect. Inside, however, everything slowly began to change. Ryan no longer asked for my opinion. Instead of introducing me as his partner, he simply referred to me as my wife. At business events, he accepted awards while I quietly sat in the audience smiling. Every compliment he received felt like another piece of my own identity disappearing. Whenever I suggested returning to work, Ryan laughed. "Why would you? My salary is more than enough. Besides, who would hire someone who's been out of the workforce for years?" I laughed with him, pretending his comments didn't hurt, but deep inside I felt myself disappearing. Then Sophie arrived. She was 29, ambitious, intelligent, and recently hired as the company's new marketing director. Ryan spoke about her constantly. At first, he praised her creativity. Then he admired her confidence. Before long, he was staying late every evening because they were supposedly working on important projects. My instincts warned me something was wrong, but I ignored them because I trusted my husband. That trust ended one rainy Thursday evening when Ryan accidentally left his phone on the kitchen counter. A message appeared on the screen. "I can't wait until your divorce is finalized. Then we won't have to hide anymore." My hands began shaking. I unlocked the phone and found hundreds of messages, hotel reservations, romantic photographs, and plans for a future that didn't include me. When Ryan walked into the kitchen and saw me holding his phone, he didn't apologize. Instead, he smiled with complete confidence. "So now you know," he said calmly. I looked at him, unable to believe what I was seeing. "How long has this been happening?" He shrugged without the slightest hint of guilt. "Long enough." "What about our marriage?" "Our marriage served its purpose." His words felt like a knife through my heart. "I gave up my career for you. You made that choice. I helped build everything you have." Ryan laughed softly before saying the sentence that changed my life forever. "No, Emma, I built everything. You were just lucky enough to stand beside someone successful." 3 weeks later, he filed for divorce. Because most of our assets had been purchased using his executive income, the settlement left me with very little. I packed my clothes, a few boxes of books, and the old laptop I'd used for years to help build his presentations. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment with secondhand furniture and a leaking kitchen sink. The silence inside that apartment was unbearable. Every morning I questioned whether Ryan had been right. Maybe I really had wasted the best years of my life supporting someone else's dream instead of building my own. One afternoon, while organizing old files on my laptop, I discovered hundreds of business plans, marketing campaigns, product launches, and successful presentations that I had created over the years. As I opened each folder, memories flooded back. These weren't Ryan's ideas. They had always been mine. That evening, I made a decision that terrified me. Instead of sending resumes and hoping someone would hire me, I registered a small consulting business using the last of my savings. My office was nothing more than a folding table beside the apartment window, an aging laptop, and endless determination. During the day, I contacted small businesses that couldn't afford expensive marketing agencies. At night, I studied new technology, digital advertising, artificial intelligence, and consumer behavior. Weeks passed without a single client. My savings continued shrinking, and there were nights when I wondered if Ryan had been right after all. Then one morning, everything changed. A local family-owned bakery called asking if I could help increase online sales. I worked for almost nothing because I desperately needed experience. 3 months later, their revenue had doubled. They recommended me to another business, which recommended me to another. Slowly, one client became 5. 5 became 20. Without realizing it, the dream I had buried for 10 years was finally beginning to grow. Within a year, my tiny consulting business had grown far beyond anything I had imagined. I hired my first employee, then my second, and before long, we had moved from my cramped apartment into a small office downtown. Unlike Ryan, I never believed leadership meant standing above everyone else. I listened to my employees, encouraged new ideas, and celebrated every success as a team achievement. The more we grew, the more clients recommended us to others. Soon our company was managing national advertising campaigns for major brands, and business magazines began calling us one of the fastest growing marketing firms in the state. Ironically, while my business was reaching new heights, Ryan's company was heading in the opposite direction. News articles reported declining sales, unhappy investors, and failed product launches. Every campaign they released felt outdated and disconnected from customers. The company that had once dominated the market was now losing millions every quarter. One afternoon, my assistant walked into my office carrying a confidential business report. "Emma," she said, "you need to see this." I opened the file and immediately recognized the company logo. Ryan's company was searching for strategic investors. Several board members wanted to sell their shares because they no longer believed Ryan could save the business. I quietly closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. Life has a strange way of bringing people back into your path when you least expect it. A week later, I attended a private meeting with a group of investment partners. They believed my company had the leadership and innovation needed to rescue the struggling business. Together, we negotiated for several weeks until an agreement was finally reached. Through a combination of investment capital and company shares, we acquired majority ownership. Legally, I became the largest shareholder. Ryan knew investors were negotiating with someone, but he had no idea who was behind the deal. The contracts remained confidential until the official announcement at the quarterly board meeting. The night before the meeting, I stood alone in my office looking out across the city skyline. I thought about the woman who had once cried herself to sleep in a tiny apartment believing her life was over. If someone had told her that one day she would own the company that had rejected her, she never would have believed it. Success hadn't erased the pain Ryan caused, but it had taught me something much more valuable. My worth had never depended on someone else's opinion. I had simply forgotten who I was. The next morning, I chose a simple emerald green business suit, tied my hair neatly behind my shoulders, and drove to the headquarters where I had once spent countless evenings helping Ryan prepare presentations. Walking through the glass entrance felt strangely familiar. Employees who had barely noticed me years ago now greeted me respectfully. Most of them still had no idea why I was there. The next morning, I chose a simple emerald green business suit, tied my hair neatly behind my shoulders, and drove to the headquarters where I had once spent countless evenings helping Ryan prepare presentations. Walking through the glass entrance felt strangely familiar. Employees who had barely noticed me years ago now greeted me respectfully. Most of them still had no idea why I was there. Inside the executive boardroom, Ryan confidently greeted the directors. He wore the same expensive smile I remembered from years earlier. Sophie sat beside him, proudly wearing an engagement ring. Ryan believed this meeting would approve his latest restructuring plan and secure his future as CEO. The chairman cleared his throat and began speaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, before discussing today's agenda, we have an important announcement. Ryan smiled confidently. The board has completed negotiations regarding the company's future ownership. Ryan nodded proudly, assuming the investors had supported him. The new majority shareholder will now join us. The boardroom doors slowly opened. I walked inside. Every board member stood. The room became completely silent. Ryan's smile disappeared instantly. His eyes widened as he stared at me. Emma? I smiled politely. Good morning, Ryan. He looked around the room, confused. What is she doing here? The chairman answered calmly. Miss Emma Carter is now the majority owner of this company. Ryan laughed nervously. This is some kind of joke. It isn't. He turned toward me. You bought the company? I invested in its future. His face turned pale. No, that's impossible. I quietly placed my folder on the conference table. It's amazing what happens when someone finally believes in themselves. Ryan remained frozen while Sophie stared at me in complete disbelief. The chairman continued. Effective immediately, the board of directors has voted to appoint Emma Carter as the company's new chief executive officer. Ryan slammed both hands on the table. You can't do this! The vote has already passed, replied the chairman. I built this company. I looked directly into his eyes. No, Ryan. Thousands of hardworking employees built this company. You simply forgot that leadership is earned every day. He looked around the room, searching for support. No one spoke. The directors who had once applauded him now quietly avoided eye contact. The chairman handed Ryan a folder. Inside are your termination documents. Ryan stared at them without moving. You fired me? I gently corrected him. No, Ryan. The board made that decision. His shoulders dropped as reality finally settled in. I have nothing left. For a moment, I remembered the afternoon he smiled while watching me leave with a cardboard box. Then I remembered the promise I had made to myself. I would never become the kind of person who measured success by someone else's suffering. I looked toward the HR director. Please ensure Mr. Carter receives every benefit required under his contract. Ryan looked at me with confusion. After everything I did, you're helping me? I'm treating you with more respect than you ever showed me. The room remained silent. Ryan slowly removed his company badge and placed it on the table. Security approached, but I quietly raised my hand. There's no need. The guard stepped back. Ryan picked up a small cardboard box containing the personal items from his office. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. I was wrong about you. I smiled gently. No, Ryan. You were wrong about yourself. You believed my success somehow diminished yours. In reality, we could have succeeded together. Without another word, he walked out of the boardroom. The heavy doors closed behind him. No applause followed, only silence. The meeting continued, but my thoughts drifted elsewhere. I wasn't celebrating revenge. I was celebrating freedom. Over the next 2 years, we transformed the company by investing in employees, encouraging innovation, and rebuilding trust with clients. Profits returned, new products succeeded, and the company became stronger than ever. The greatest achievement, however, wasn't financial. Using a portion of our annual profits, I created the Emma Carter Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping women restart their careers after divorce, financial hardship, or emotional abuse. Every year, hundreds of women receive free business training, career coaching, and scholarships to build independent futures. During the opening ceremony of our first leadership conference, I stood before hundreds of women and shared the lesson that had changed my life forever. The greatest revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. The greatest revenge is becoming someone who no longer needs their approval. The audience rose to their feet in applause. As I looked across the room, I realized something that once seemed impossible. Ryan hadn't ruined my life. He had unknowingly given me the courage to finally build the life that was always meant to be mine. And that was the greatest victory of all. 3 months later, our company was stronger than ever. Employee morale had returned, clients trusted us again, and for the first time in years, people were proud to work there. One afternoon, my assistant knocked on my office door. Emma, there's someone here to see you. When I looked up, Ryan was standing quietly in the doorway. He looked nothing like the confident executive who had once laughed as I carried a cardboard box out of the building. His expensive suits were gone, and so was the arrogance that had once defined him. I just came to say I'm sorry, he said quietly. I thought success made me better than everyone else. I was wrong. I looked at him for a moment before answering. I forgive you, Ryan, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. He nodded slowly. understanding there would never be another chance for us. "I'm glad you found your happiness," he said before quietly walking away. I never saw him again. A year later, I stood on the stage of our annual Women's Leadership Summit speaking to hundreds of women rebuilding their lives after divorce, loss, and heartbreak. I smiled and said, "Never allow someone else's opinion to become your identity. The greatest revenge isn't making them regret losing you, it's building a life so meaningful that you no longer need their approval." The audience stood and applauded. As I looked across the room, I realized Ryan had never truly destroyed my life. He had only closed one chapter. I was the one who had written the next, and that chapter became the best story of my life.